Yesterday I was on the Bluebird website. Yeah, I received the expected results. It's a video by A.S.K about awful cartoon reboots. And when you actually look at the thumbnail, you go, hey, wait a second. Why is Hazel here? This isn't a reboot. This is a sequel series. A revival. Huh? What the hell? Then I watched the video. It's bad. In less than a minute in, A.S.K says, quote, mindless drivel plotlines, flashy art style, and an overt unfaithfulness to the source material, end quote, in reference to A New Wish. Let's work backwards, shall we? 1. Overt unfaithfulness to the source material. How exactly is it unfaithful to the source material? The original had a very simple formula. Miserable kid gets fairy godparents. Kid uses fairies to make wish and gets into an assortment of antics. Wash, rinse, and repeat this for 10 seasons and a few specials and movies. It's not exactly something A New Wish breaks. I think the only major deviation from the original series, besides the whole time shifting, is the fact that this is quite a bit more serialized than the original series. A.S.K's other critique in the flashy art style, really? If anything, I've seen people less concerned about the art style, actually praising the Peanuts movie type animation for it. If anything, people are more concerned about the whole how the wishes in the earlier parts of the series are far more pedestrian than what we normally see from Fairly Oddparents. And this is waived by most people as, okay, the staff is just building assets for later use. Things do get more wild towards the midpoint of Season 1, which makes sense. They're used to this by now, so I can give them a bit more leeway. Then there's how he describes the plot as mindless drivel. What? One of the big talking points about A New Wish is, like I said, it is semi-serialized. Hard to call the plot nonsensical because clearly there is some level of cause and effect at play. Later in the video, A.S.K would say, quote, because instead of just telling unfunny stories, modern reboots, especially in the animated realm, aim to purposefully disrespect the original vision. End quote. Once more. What? A.S.K actively shows visuals of A New Wish when making this statement. It's clear to see what he's implying. And to that I say, why does the original creator even matter here? When I say the X-Men, for example, you're probably not thinking of the original X-Men run. You're probably thinking of something along the lines of Claremont and Byrne stories, like Dark Phoenix, or Days of Future Past, or God Loves, Man Kills. This did not come from the pen of the original. Who were the original writers of the X-Men? It was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. They did not make the iconic stories of the X-Men. It was later writers who picked them up. Hell, Apocalypse didn't even come from the Claremont run, and the Claremont run is considered to be the iconic run. He came from the pen of Louise Simonson. You know who else came from the pen of Louise Simonson? Other mainstay, Cable. She co-created Cable. Hell, there are cases where the original creator is considered a low point for the character's history. Take Bendis' Ironheart, for example. Bendis' Ironheart, when it came out, and I still hold this sentiment to this day, had the pacing of a rotting carcass in a cryogenic freezer. It was long and without substance, despite being only 10 issues. Come Eve Ewing, who salvaged her solo run, and Jim Zub, who salvaged her on the Champions run. That made life so much easier for so many people, including the readers. So forgive me if I don't think the original creator is the god of the work. At best, the original creator is maybe the pope of the work. But given how Butch signed off on whatever the hell this was, and ew, this... Forgive me for not exactly considering Butch the god of this work, or even Pope Clement, and more like a Pope Alexander VI. Anyways, A.S.K goes further, saying Batman Beyond and Ben 10 Alien Force are examples of reboots, reiterations to use his terminology, as examples to contrast the colorful reboots that are apparently used to jiggle keys in front of children. 1. These two are sequel series, not reboots. So back to the topic of this video. One of the things he brings up is the concept of race swapping, and yes, that's the image he uses, and it's scrolls. Here are his actual words on the matter. Quote, "The current bandwagon is the whole race-swapping thing they love to do with animated characters. April O'Neil, Timmy Turner, Velma, etc." End quote. He actually uses Hazel as an example of a race-swapped character. Hazel is not a race-swapped Timmy Turner because of one major but tiny detail. This is a sequel to the original. Timmy Turner still exists. Also, A.S.K goes on to say he didn't see Virgil Hawkins from Static Shock as a black character. I'm sorry. Huh? Why would you even say that? He's a character written by Dwayne McDuffie for Milestone Media, a company made to help represent African American artists and writers because they felt minorities were underrepresented in American comics and wished to address this. Also, I don't think he once calls Hazel Wells by her actual name, he just calls her Black Timmy Turner. When confronted about this dissonance, A.S.K's defense is genuinely paper thin, saying, quote, "Almost every character is the same except for her. While she's not explicitly a Timmy race swap, it serves more or less the same purpose." End quote. Okay, let's discuss what race swapping actually is. You have a character from an original property. When that property is rebooted, remade, or adapted into a different medium or continuity, that character has the same name and same niche, more or less, but they have their race changed and maybe a few things related to it. The example I just used was Kid Flash Wally West from the pre-New 52 days to the Kid Flash Wally West from the New 52 days, before they decide to retcon him as Wally West's cousin or something like that. They have the same great-grandfather. That's what they have according to the reboot retcons. This thesis falls apart the moment you realize, again, this is a sequel series. Again, sequel series. SEQUEL series. Hazel is not a race swap. She is a legacy character. Timmy Turner still exists. She did not erase and replace him. She comes after him in the timeline. She is his successor. This is the same way how Barry Allen died and his nephew, Wally West, took up the mantle of the Flash. Or how Scott Lang took up the mantle of Ant-Man after Hank Pym. Or how Mayday Parker in the MC2 continuity succeeded her father as Spider-Girl, not Spider-Man. For a person who spent an entire video going on about how race doesn't matter, I find it funny that A.S.K did not once use the actual term legacy character for Hazel, and instead uses the term race-swapped Timmy Turner, making it abundantly clear that despite all his blustering about how he doesn't see race, it's pretty clear that he does see race. A.S.K's original video tries to hide behind the "I don't like seeing the original creator's vision desecrated" defense in order to simply complain about having a black lead in a sequel series, not a reboot, a sequel series, or a revival. Make your own characters, they say, but when you do, watch people go on about how you're not original, or you're just a race-swapped version of the original, or a gender-swapped version of the original. When a white lead fails, it's just normal failure. When a minority fails, when the whole internet burns to the ground and claims that the minority in question is responsible for the failure, and how they are merely a symbol for the agenda, whatever it may be. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. I'm done ranting. Cyril signing off.